All right, Trail Runner's Journey, the TRJ show is live. Take two. All right, had some technical difficulties with the last version, so here we are back again. So, Trail Runner's Journey, this is all about longevity and how you can live. You can keep doing what you're doing, what you're doing, what you're doing. Hope that made sense. Anyway, today's show is all about heat and how to beat the heat. We are headed into a heat wave, and there's also Sinister 7 race this weekend, and usually it's hot for that race. It can be quite hot. And if you're running leg 3, they don't call that leg Satan's sack for nothing. It is an open, open, just a nasty. Sun just beats right in there, and it's a nasty leg. So anyhow, this show is jam packed with tips on how to keep your cool during the run, and also if you have to run in the heat, because it's easy enough to say, well, just run when it's cooler, but what if you can't? What if your schedule doesn't allow it? Or what if you're in a race like Sinister this weekend and your leg happens to be in the heat? So this show is all about tips about how to keep cool in the race. So how hot is it getting? Well, for us up here, it's getting in 30 degrees Celsius and into the 30s and stuff like that. So for my Fahrenheit friends, that is into the 90s. That's a high 80s into the 90s. And for some, if you say, well, that's not really all that hot, we have hotter down here. Well, wait a minute. In 6 months' time, when it dips to 30 degrees Fahrenheit and a skiff of snow, we're going to be up here going, yeah, yeah. So for us, this is quite warm. So 6 months from now, it'll be totally the opposite. So here we go. So how do you beat the heat when you have to run in it? And there's actually quite a bit of things you could do to make your run a heck of a lot more comfortable. First of all, let's look at sunglasses. Get a decent pair of sunglasses. When I say decent, they don't have to be expensive. You don't have to spend the price of Oakley's $200 for a good pair of sunglasses. These are gooder. There's nothing wrong with gooders. Gooders are great. They're fashionable. They're quite cool looking. They're lightweight. And if you happen to lose them on the trail, you're not out $200. You're out maybe 40 bucks. So Gooders are a good brand. Personally, I like a wraparound like Jilbo's. Those are my race glasses. The thing to remember with sunglasses is they don't fog up. You don't want to be running along and all of a sudden you've got fog in your lenses, especially when you're running downhill. So comfort's paramount, and whether they fog up or not. So sunglasses, you want to protect your eyes, especially when that sun's really blaring down. So that's number one. Number two is a hat. Now, some people don't like wearing hats, but when it's really hot and the sun's beating down, it will actually help you help protect you against sunstroke and heat stroke. And the one thing I recommend is knowing what your symptoms are for sunstroke and for heat stroke. Heat stroke is the worst of the two. So doing what you can to help prevent it. Now, this show, I am going through tips that you can help prevent sunstroke and heat stroke. Now, also know the treatment for those as well too. So first of all, a hat. Okay, this is a Zoot cooling hat. The brand is Zoot. Triathlon gear is usually made with, it is a brand for triathlon, so that's where you find this. Now, I like this because it also protects the back of my neck. It protects the back of my neck. It's nice and lightweight, and I get more than just on the head protection. Now, does it have to be a hat like this? No, it could be a cowboy hat, it could be a tilly hat, it could be a visor, it could be a regular ball cap, it could be a buff, whatever it is. Protect the top of your head so you could keep cool. Now, not only keeping cooler is this with this hat. There we are. Dunk it in water. Dunk it in water, fill it full of ice, plunk it back on your head. It really helps. It really, really does. I've raced in Phoenix, Javelina, and where it's actually very hot. And so this guy's wonderful. So utilize whatever water sources you have. If you're out and about, if you have a stream, if you have a fountain, whatever it is, wet. Keep this thing wet, and it really helps. I've got massive amount of hair that takes hours. I'm not kidding, hours to dry. So the more wet my head could be, the better it is. And here's how that heat thing works. So what happens with the body is the body sweats. As the body sweats, the air dries the sweat, and there's where you get your cooling from. So that's why it's important to keep as wet as you can, my opinion. There you go, the hat. Now, what I've got around my neck, I've actually got a couple of things. Number one, I've got a cooling towel. And there's a reason why I have the cooling towel wrapped around my neck, because it's what's underneath the neck. So this is a cooling towel. This is a piece of gear I highly recommend carrying with you. It's fantastic. All you do is wet the thing, give it to something like that, put it on top of your head, put it on top of your neck. It really does help to keep you cool. It's fantastic. It's great to have if you've got streams around, or if you got a water fountain, whatever. I highly recommend carrying a cooling towel. Now, the reason I had it wrapped around my neck like this is because what I've got all around my neck. This is a cooling bandana. Okay, this is a homemade cooling bandana. A friend of mine made it for me. This you actually pack with ice. So I'm going to undo this. And this has got a chamois pocket inside, and this is packed with ice. Now, I don't have ice for the show. I actually have some other cooling things in here. So what you do is you pack this full of ice, fold it, make sure it's nice and secure. Rob Krar, by the way, is one who is an avid fan of cooling bandanas. So you wrap it around your neck, you tie it around. Now, why I put the cooling towel around it as well too is because this alone has kind of a choking effect. So 2 reasons. I put the cooling towel around, cinch it up so it's less strain on the front of my neck, but also when the ice melts, the ice inside the bandana melts, what catches it? The cooling towel. Now the cooling towel is moist, and I have another way of keeping me cool, not only the neck bandana, but also the cooling towel as well too. Just a little tip I learned. So yeah, this is a cooling bandana. Now, if you don't want to make your own, you can Google how to make cooling bandanas. It's a chamois in here that actually holds on to the moisture. Earth Groove in Edmonton sells cooling bandanas. And one thing that I like is their bandana is bigger, and the point of it is actually thicker, so it actually holds the water, so you can have the water around your neck longer. Okay, so that's an ice bandana, and that's a cooling towel. I highly recommend carrying this. There's also cooling stuff also comes as a cooling buff. Okay, so a cooling buff, and with any buff you can do is you could actually put ice in these things, put ice in it, and have it around your neck, because your arteries over here, you have them cool them off, you're going to be a lot cooler. So a buff can also have one of these guys. It is actually a little ice cooler, same kind of thing. Wrap it around your neck. Okay. Another thing to have is also, I'm going to come to next, are the cooling sleeves. Now, cooling sleeves are these ones are made by Zoot. They actually are an official cooling sleeve. Now, there's a difference between cooling sleeves made with actual cooling material and then made with this. Zoot sleeves have xylitol in the threads, and they actually do work for cooling. Wearing these things, there is a difference, but there's a key thing to wearing a cooling sleeve is that they are to be wet, because they really facilitate that evaporation. And they actually really do work. And for around the neck, if you have an extra sleeve, fill it full of ice, put it around your neck. There's another neck trick for you. These sleeves, keep them wet. Another thing to do is load up with ice. Load up with ice right from your wrist to your armpit. Load it up with ice. You'll be amazed at how long that will help to keep the coolness in, and how long that ice will last. So ice, where do you put ice? Obviously in your hat, in your bandana. You could put it absolutely in cooling sleeves. Ladies, down your bra. Other places, where do you want it? So hands, ice in your hands. Hands are radiators of heat. Putting your hands in cool water, that helps you keep cool. Another thing is, if you have a vest, and if you're with your bottles, you can the ones with your water in it, you can put your bottle half full, freeze that, and had your water the next day. The bladder. Some people will say freeze the bladder. I'm not wild about freezing the bladder because of two reasons. I don't want to have a cracked bladder and not know it. And number two, if that port gets frozen, I can't access that water or that ice turned to water until that port thaws. It's not great. But if you're going to freeze it, make sure that port is up. What I do instead is I load it full of ice. I load it full of ice, and I either loaded it full of ice the night before and put it in the freezer, or that day and have everything in ice, and then I wear that bladder on my back. It doesn't matter that I'm drinking out of my bottles. That bladder in the back is on my back, keeping my central nervous system cool. And as that ice melts, I also have cool water. Okay, so that's also another thing. Now, if you're crewing somebody, ask what they want to have cold, as in packed in ice. It could be it could be a cooling towel. It could be their bottles. Ask your runner what they want packed in ice if that race is hot. Now, another trick with the cooling sleeves to how to keep them wet. What I do I carry one of these. I carry a collapsible cup. So what I do is I carry this guy in the palm of my hand like this underneath my wrist, and I catch all the water that's dripping off my arm. Why do I do that? I've got water to pour on my sleeve later on. Also, a cup, if you run across a stream, you got water to pour on your sleeves. Okay. The other way to keep your sleeves wet is if your mouth is dry and you don't want to swallow the water, spit it on your sleeves. Oh, that's gross. Hey man, it keeps you cool. It's a trick I learned. Another thing I do is carry a collapsible flask, like a Solomon collapsible flask. This is a cup, but a flask. I carry a little flask full of water, and I will squirt that on my sleeves when my sleeves get dry. Okay, so there's various ways to keep your sleeves cool. Now, where do you get cooling sleeves? Triathlon stores. The triathlon gear. There's also cooling shirts as well too. There's all sorts of gear you can have for cooling. But the one thing to keep in mind, cotton is rotten. No, cotton holds in the moisture, and it's just not only real uncomfortable, it also is a blister magnet. So absolutely no cotton. So for clothing, now another thing I recommend carrying is an emergency blanket. You know those silver foil emergency blankets you usually carry in the winter? I recommend carrying in the summer as well too. Well, I'm not going to be cold. However, if you're going into the night, the difference in temperatures, depending on where you are and how cold it gets, hypothermia can set in. And let's say, for example, you're in an open space and you did happen to roll an ankle and you can't move anywhere. You've got shade. It could be a shade cover. So carrying an emergency blanket, carrying a cooling towel with you, think of what you can go in your pack to help keep you safe, and also to help cool off when you need to as well too. Okay, so for gear, also it must be moisture wicking and comfortable, and especially when you're going to be sweating, make sure you got your lube going as well too. So humidity. Dry heat is different than humid heat. A lot different. So here's what happens when the body sweats. The body sweats, perspiration comes out, that perspiration dries in the air and thus cools us off. Oh, and by the way, women sweat differently than men. Men open up the pores and they all come out. Women sweat, how we sweat is an increase of blood flow to the extremities, to the surface. That's how women sweat. So we sweat just a little different than men, and we do sweat. When women say, "Oh, I'm glowing," yeah, we're also sweating as well too. But that's why we have a lot of times a redder face, is because the blood flow to the surface has been increased. So humidity is a factor, and a dry heat, the water evaporates off your skin and you could be cool. However, in humidity, when you've got a humidex in the 80%, 90%, and it's humid, This is where it gets dangerous, is because with the humidity in the air, your body can't cool off. Your body can't evaporate the sweat because you've already got the moisture coming from the air. And that's what makes the humidity such a factor. So what do if you have to run in the humidity? Slow down. Slow down and don't push yourself. Okay? Because with the humidity, it's like a heat dome effect, and it's harder. It very much is harder to run in humidity than what it is dry. So with humidity, be very careful and slow down. So hydration. Okay, for hydration, we often think of hydration during the race. Well, actually, if you're waiting till the race, that's a little bit too late. Actually, that's quite a bit too late. So for the race, briefly, make sure you have your electrolyte tuned in, and think about what foods you want during the race. Think about your water-rich foods you want during the race. Let your crew know that when you come in, you want watermelon, you want grapes, you want whatever water-rich stuff. If you want freezies, and by the way, crew freezies are fantastic. They act as ice packs as well too. You can give your runner a freezie, send them with a freezie. They're nice to easy to carry, much easier to carry than a Slurpee, and they also give you a great sugar hit. So hydration. When should you start hydrating for your race? Today. And considering the heat wave we're in, absolutely. Notice what your signs for dehydration are. Me, it's my lips. My lips start getting chapped. So note what your signs of dehydration are. So hydration, people think, well, I drink lots of water. Well, it's not only water. When you sweat out sodium, potassium chloride, and magnesium. You're sweating out your electrolytes. So having a bottle of electrolyte when it's hot outside, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Also, look at the foods you're having. Increase your salt, and I like Himalayan sea salt. I like the sea salt over the iodized because it has the minerals in there. So think about your water-rich foods. Increase those this week. Watermelon, grapes, tomatoes, pickles, pickle juice, and yeah, have that for your runner at the race. If the aid station doesn't have it, have pickles and pickle juice. They're fantastic for electrolyte regulation. Salt. Increase your salt a bit. Freezies, as I said, freezies, popsicles. Yeah, but I like a cold beer on a hot day. Well, doesn't everybody? Personally, I prefer Radlers. But, throw some tomato juice or clamato juice in your beer. Yeah, but hydrate. Increase your hydration this week, because the whole thing, when you toe that start line, you want to have all your stores full. Now, speaking of that, a lot of times before the race, the night before, there's a huge pasta dinner. And it's easy to think, oh, carb load. Yep, absolutely, a big plate full of pasta. Well, here's the gig. What happens with that pasta, it not only sits in the stomach, it requires water for digestion. So all that water in your bloodstream and where it's supposed to go to hydrate goes into your stomach so it could digest those carbohydrates. Okay, so if you're not rehydrating efficiently after your meal, you're going to start the race a little dehydrated. And after a night's sleep, you're dehydrated when you wake up in the morning anyway. Now, I'm also going to mention, if you're traveling, increase your hydration, whether it's electrolyte, whether it's water, whether it's fruit juice, green smoothies, whatever. Increase your hydration after you've been traveling, because whether it's a car, whether it's an airplane, whatever it is, the air is drier. The air is drier, and you will have some degree of dehydration. Now, when you're starting your race, I should mention, for the night before, yeah, you can eat pasta, but maybe not load your plate. But also know the fact that pasta requires water for digestion. Increase your water. Increase your fluids when you're having that pasta. Personally, I like potatoes and sweet potatoes, because they have the water built in with them. Absolutely increase what you're drinking. Where am I going to? I was thinking this. Oh yeah, when you're towing that start line, before you tow it, make sure you're hydrated. A bottle of electrolyte before you tow that start line, whether you're starting on a leg or whether you're starting at the start of the race. It's actually recommended to have a bottle of electrolyte. Now, what if I have to pee? Well, actually, that's not a bad thing. So here's the thing when it comes to the small intestine. If there is a bit of carbohydrate in your water in the form of sugar, something that small intestine goes, hey, there's food here. That water, that moisture in that water will be absorbed rather than going straight out to the outshoot canal. Okay, so if you have a little bit of salt, a little bit of carbohydrate in your water, or if you have electrolyte, it's more likely to be absorbed than what it is for you to have to pee it out. Okay, now I'm going to say in the heat peeing, make sure you are peeing. Okay, usually peeing once every 4 hours maximum. Yeah, make sure you are. If you're not, increase that hydration and make sure your pee is anywhere from clear to a yellow color. If it's the color of my wall, wait a minute, that's sunflower yellow. That's not pea yellow. Anyhow, if it's about the color of sunflower yellow, you're fine. It's if you start peeing red or peeing the color of Coke, now you've got concerns to be worried about. There you need to really evaluate whether you continue on in the race. Red, especially fresh red, that's infection. And if it's brown, that's starting on to rhabdomyolysis. So that's where you really have to look at, do I continue in the race? Okay. So just to be aware, yes, if you have to squat, take a look between your legs and take a look what color your pee is. Okay, want safety running in the heat. Okay, so I'm going to mention for crews, if you're crewing somebody, especially at Sinister this weekend, or the Death Race, which is happening in August, and that could be a hot race too. Ask your runner, what do they want for ice? Do they want, when they come in, what do they want for ice? Do they want parts of their clothing stuffed with ice? Do they want a very cold drink when they come in? Ask what your crew wants in regards to cooling. Do they want a Slurpee? Do they want freezies? Do they want a very cold drink? What do they want? And communicate that. Runners communicate that with your crew. Crew communicate with your runners. What do your runners want? Do they want watermelon? As soon as they come in, when they give you the pack, you stuff them full of watermelon. Is it pickles? Is it pickle juice? Know what your runner wants. And this is an open communication, so you're not going there race day and you come in and you have no clue. Now for crew, check and see what's at the aid station, and you may have to bring a cooler. Bring a cooler along with it, because depending on what's on that aid station, depending on what that runner wants. Okay. Now, when you're running, this is the one of when you're running in the heat, it's hard. Okay, because the body is not only running for effort to keep the pace up, it's also running for effort to cool you down. And especially in humidity, that's a double whammy. So what do? Number one, you slow down. And I know it's hard to do, but here's a better way to ensure you do slow down, is to drop the heart rate, as in drop the heart rate looking at your watch to seeing what your heart rate is. Run by effort. And the thing is, if you're not running a conversation pace so that you could have an easy conversation like I'm having with you now, you might want to take it a little bit slower. If you're coming up the hill, slow yourself down so that you can continue. 3 and 4 sentences is okay, but if you're starting to go a few words, slow down. If your sweat's pouring off you, pay attention. Okay? So if you look at zone 2 is your conversation pace. Run by effort instead of a number on your watch. Because the thing is, your body will give you the signals. Learn to read your body. Your body will let you know when it's being stressed. And pay attention to that. It'll save you in the long run. If there's a creek, get into it. If you have to sit in the creek, do so. Do whatever you can to keep you comfortable, keep you wet, keep you hydrated. Okay? Now I'm going to say should you drink from a stream? That judgment's actually up to you. Personally, I do. I take a look at the stream. If it's running clear, I'll drink from it. I also know that it takes 5 days for Giardia to set in. So, yeah, I will. I've drank from worse things than that. But it's up to you. But having your physical body wet to keep you cool, yeah, it works. Now, after you're done, and especially at the end of the day, we've heard about ice baths are really good. Depends. Now, ice baths work better for men than they do for women. Women, the ice is actually too cold. It has too much of a cooling factor, and we can go into shivers. What's actually better is a cool bath. Now, this is my trick. I like to go into the shower and turn the water colder, so that when I'm stepping out of the shower, it's a cool shower. Like I'm pretty much in cold water. That feels so darn refreshing. That feels refreshing. Other things, running through a sprinkler. Running through a sprinkler, turning the water tap on, having a water fight. Yeah, get those water guns and have a water fight. And yeah. So if you have any other tips that I didn't mention of keeping you cool during the heat, drop them in the comments below. Even after the live has ended, share with me what cool weather gear do you have? What cool weather tips do you have? How do you keep yourself cool? And for everybody running in Sinister this weekend, good luck, have fun, and stay safe. Until next week, have a good week, stay safe, enjoy the heat.